I'm Sarah Stout. I thought I'd put a face to a name for you using this video. Some of you will be able to meet me at the meet and greet in a couple days, and some of you will not, and that's totally fine. Otherwise, I'll see you in September on the first day of class. I'm going to talk real briefly in this video about what you can expect from me in the classroom, and then the things that you're going to do at home, and I'm going to walk you through Google Class a little bit and the syllabus of each course. So let's get started. A typical day in the classroom is always going to include some sort of lab or hand activity, so that's a definite is going to be happening. The other part that will be happening is more direct instruction, so your typical lectures that might be happening, we're going to have discussions depending on that lends itself, and then always a bit of group work is going to be going on, so we're going to have a lot of collaboration on talking about the science skills, and that's what I think a real classroom experience can kind of bring in. We can bring in labs that you might otherwise be able to do at home. I can bring in the collaboration part, work with the students, and then I can help out with those tough parts. So I know that all three of these classes, physical science, physics, and chemistry, happen to have math involved. It might not be the strong suit of the student or maybe the parent, and I want to be there to help with that. So you can always expect that part to be happening too. I might teach that part, and then we're going to do some practice, and then we'll do a lab with those skills. That might be a typical day. You take a look at the outline here. All the outlines of the syllabus kind of look the same, similar. I've got the course goals there, what we're looking at. In physical science, we're going to be working on CR skills. That's a claim, evidence, and reasoning, being able to really state this. I think that because of this evidence that I see in the lab, and then here's the reason that this evidence supports the claim. And so these are really important science skills. And then we're going to build on that in chemistry and in physics. So in physical science, they're going to meet 2 days a month. And then I want to show you the CR. We're going to have a rubric such as this. And this will be a rubric that's going to be posted out there. And then every time you do maybe a claim or reason, I'm going to re-highlight where your student is at on there. So they might start out with a claim and they might not be doing so hot. They might like start a D, hopefully not, but a C maybe. You have a low level of claim where evidence usually has a more struggling part. Then as we talk more about gain skills, hopefully the student will be moving up towards the A standard. So that by the end we'll have that meet standard kind of concept of each of the parts. And so I want to make sure we have like growth mindset. I certainly do, and that when we start out not so great, and that's what I'm here for, to help you and your student learn how to do it better so that we can move our way into the next week and get to that. I put on an A, B, C, D, that's typical standard, but the idea of meeting what we're expecting in the student. So you'll see that in Google Classroom eventually, and for each, and then I'll be posting in these right here how they do. Like it'll be date, like on September 3rd they're looking at a B round, then maybe November 6th they've got clay down, and I'll get it again maybe in a different lab in May, and they'd have it down at that point. So you'll see dates and how they're hopefully progressing and not just staying in one spot. That's one way I can communicate to you this part. Moving downward, all of the courses will show the date, module we're on, and that if there's classwork before. I typically don't do classwork before because in my experience, a lot of students don't read stuff before. It's busy or they get lost in it. I always send out a weekly update right after class on Wednesday, so you expect something from me that says, this is what we did in class, it was great, here's a grade that I provided, as well as this is what you needed by next week. So if there's something in there, typically before reading is like one thing that's sticking out is when we go to physics and it talks about orbits, and they'll talk about Newton or Galileo, and they have kind of like history of two scientists. Those are things that I'm not really going to talk about in class, but you can read that ahead of time. It doesn't fully affect the parts of the class. I have the goals that I'm going to do in class. Now, that isn't all set goals of the chapter, but this is what I can get to in class. And so I want to know this is the goal I have for my students, and this is what they're going to do. And so I always set those goals out and then what they're going to do afterward. Now, we're only meeting 2 times a month in physical science, so every week is actually going to be one module. Every week that we meet will be one module. There'll be a couple weeks in there where we do 2, like physics, there's a big chapter and the weather unit is really big. So those parts will meet 2 weeks, but everyone else, every other module will be 1 week worth. When I'm looking at these labs, especially when I look at physical science, I can't get to all of it, certainly. So a lot will be at home. There are bigger chapters because there's less math skills in there at times. There's more vocabulary and terms. And when I'm deciding which topics am I going to do, I'm looking for what labs could you maybe not do in school at home, but do with me. I'm looking for what topics kind of lend themselves to discussions. Or when I'm not certain what I'm going to do, especially in the physical side, I'm thinking, oh, there's so many things to do. I'm looking at the state standards because that shows me, okay, this is the most important and this is what all the students at this age have. Then I think that's important for our students to do. Now, there are some topics in physical science that, like there's global warming, and I'll send out an email about that. The textbook has very stead stance on that part, and I'll be sending you an email about any hot topics, but that's only what I can think about. Physics and chemistry don't really lend themselves to that. All right, let's move ourselves to a different topic, physics. You can see it has the coming out again. This course, we're going to be working on a lot of math parts. It doesn't have as much, it'll claim evidence of reasoning, but we're not going to focus on that as much. There's a lot of math and a little more complicated, so I'm going to spend more of my time working on really getting into physics problems. I think that's where you most help. Again, we've got the date and the module we're working on, what you're going to read before class. Now, if I'm having some things, physics get a little more, they're older, so I can expect more out of them. Like here, I want you to read page 5 through 13, and I really have the goal, like while you're reading that, you should know this. And so they're honing in on this is what you need to know. Because then I'm going to use that information that you have to be able to complete my objectives that I'm doing in class. So on this day, I'm going to be talking about graphs and looking at calculus velocity versus speed and a lot more graphs because that seems more difficult. You can see I've got a lot more in between before parts of this part. And here is 2, so hopefully that'll help you out there. But most of it is, these ones are 2 modules every 2 weeks is what it usually works out to be. The shorter ones we'll be doing just 1 week, but that kind of is ones that kind of typical lab always has a purpose and procedure and data, and just like the ER for physical science, we're going to be working with this rubric and hopefully moving itself along. So each kind of week, I'm going to be kind of introducing a different part. So it's not like I'm going to be like, here's a lab report, let's see the first time. It's not going to work that way. We're going to do one skill at a time and move our stuff throughout the year, and then by the end of the year, write a full lab report. There'll be a full report kind of towards the beginning and then one really end. So we'll see how we do that. And again, I'll be being like, here's my A grade. Maybe you got an A, you're really good at graphs, and that'll be on the first day, like in September or something. But maybe you're not. Most people are writing errors, so a lot of people are in the C section for errors because you've really written it, don't understand how to write it, and I'm going to continue that part. So in class, we'll go over some examples and we'll talk about it and discuss it in class, and then that day I'll give you a lab, and they'll write the errors in the lab, and then I'll take it home and grade it, and then I'll put in what they got. Most students, even though we talk about it, started a C, so you can expect on that date, I think that'll be like November or something, that they'll start there, but then we'll do an error again in the next day, so maybe in December, and then in January do it again, and then they move it. Finally, they understand how to do the parts and move on to an A. So we'll be seeing this at the topic for each individual student, and then you can know how your students do on each of these skills. Okay, going back to chemistry. There are 2 editions, and so I've kind of written it out for second edition. I have the third edition home, I have the second edition. I also try to put the pages in as best I can. I put in what I'm going to do in class and then the lab skills. And so a thing that I can provide to the classroom that you might not be able to do at home is these lab skills. A lot of science curriculum, I think, is weak in that area because it's hard to do via a textbook and not an actual classroom. So that's something that I can really help and provide to make sure your students are communicating and demonstrating knowledge in a science sort of way. So that's what I have for that. Google Classroom, I've got a page for each of them. We'll go into the chemistry. You should see a welcome message. And then you should see your syllabuses up. For chemistry, I have a resource page that has a lot of videos that I've made. They're already vetted if you need help on topics. You can look at that. I'll be putting up the rubric I also saw, and there it'll be per student. So I'll be updating that as it goes. When you're going to be seeing grades, now, I don't have any grades up yet. You'll be able to see the grades, but only for your students' portal. So you'll have to log in as your student grades. Now, that's where I'll be putting lab grades. Like if we do one in class, then you'll have Perhaps if we do in class and I've checked it all and everything, you'll just see 100% for your student for that part. If they turn in a lab in class, then I'll grade it at home and I'll scan some images. Parts didn't go so well, so you can see it right away. I think it's really important to get feedback right away. Like, you turn it on Wednesday and then they don't see it till the next Wednesday. A lot of students just look at it and like, like any of us, like, well, that's done. I think it's more important where you turn on Wednesday, I'm going to be looking at Thursday, Friday, the latest, and I'll grade them, and I'll put the grades in, and then I'll take pictures of the parts that aren't so great, because I have paper lab, and then they can see what they need to fix, or they could comment to me, and we can discuss things. So there is a way in the classroom for you always comment. Like, you could be commenting down here, also, and a way for the student to have a private conversation with each, not just for all the class to see on their own classwork. Also times where, let's say we're doing a lab in class, they didn't quite finish in class. That's fine. You'll go home and you can turn it in on class. You can like type it out, or you could take a picture. Either way would one way to submit the actual lab. So after they submit it, then I kind of grade whenever it comes in. You'll be looking at the grades and you'll see if there's ever a time missing. I just don't have a lab for them. So this is my way to communicate to you. The other grades that I'm going to be sending out is that after class, within that next week before the next class, I'm going to be asking, not every time, frequently, Google form questions for physics and chemistry. Sometimes physical science, sometimes not. I'm not quite sure what that group will want to be able to do. So, but there'll definitely be questions coming out, and those are going to be questions based on classroom work. So in class time, I want to make sure that what I'm communicating to your student, they're actually getting, and they're like retaining it or getting it, and those Google forms will allow me to see that. So you should be able to see at home how they're doing. They've got the textbook, and they've got, if you'd like to get tests that come with it, Apologia sells that, and it's up to you if you want to do the tests or not. I will not be doing tests in class, but I will be doing labs and giving you lab grades. I will be doing those rubrics for physics and physical science, so you can see the grades on that. And I will also be doing just so maybe 5 questions based on what we just learned this week. And then that will be sent to you by email. I kind of see those as a formative assessment, meaning this is from what I have done. It shows you, do they need to do more work at home or do they not? And that's something that I'm going to try to stress to the students to get done Thursday or Friday so that they can see how well they're kind of doing on parts. So, to the parents, every week you should be seeing this posted up in Classroom. I'll be putting a message to all the students from me. You should be seeing emails from me that show how students doing on those questions that come out, and you'll know if those are questions based on the announcement of the week. And then after a week, you'll say, here's what we did in class, you did a great job. Here's what you got to do by next week, and it includes doing this formative quiz or this little mini quiz from classes this week just to see how we did. And then you'll know that there's got to be something come out. If you don't get an email that shows how your student is doing, they didn't send me one. The first couple, I'll send emails to those groups that your student didn't fill this out, just a heads up. But then as time goes on, you either got an email that week or you didn't, sort of thing. So in that way, I'm really communicating to you, this is how your student's doing in class, and this is how they're doing, so that you can know how to best handle it from home. Yeah, what else I need? If there's anything else that you could think of that would be helpful, please shoot it out to me. I'll see what I can do about that. And always email me. I'm always available, and have students email to me too if they're having struggles. I would much prefer that they just email me and say, I have no idea what to do here. That's totally fine. I can go from there, right? There is going to be time in chemistry where I'm asking them to come up with a procedure ahead of time class. Before they get to class, like, do the best you can, come up with something. Anytime there's things before class, I'm not asking it to be right and perfect. I'm just asking for an attempt, because then it gets me, okay, I've got them here. I need to get them here. Or it tells me, I've got them already up here. We don't have much more to go. It gives me something to go with before class. So I know where I can group them according to how they're doing. This group's like, oh, they know exactly what to do. I'll put them together. They can go. This group needs more help. Let me put them together so I can really spend my time with them. So I really am hoping that those assignments before class can come in before class with enough time for me to give a good game plan. From my past year's experience, I'd get many coming in. I made them really short to try to make sure things are coming in. So that's something I could really use your help on. If there's any pre-assignments, you can see I don't have too many. To really kind of support your student to get that done. Here's what chemistry looks like. It's not too many. There'll be a couple procedure ones that I want to do ahead of time. But do your very best, and I'll be there to